What you've come to know as NGP, our next generation portable, is officially named PlayStation Vita.
When the PlayStation Vita was released in Japan in 2011, it was a technical marvel. OLED screen, Hall effect joysticks, Bluetooth connectivity, and a powerhouse of a mobile chip. The PlayStation Vita was clearly ahead of its time, especially when compared to its more successful competitor, the Nintendo 3DS. And in 2024, the PlayStation Vita still finds incredible ways to surprise us and stay relevant over 12 years later. What is up, guys? It's your boy T4, and in today's video, we're going to be creating a Nintendo Switch-like dock for your PlayStation Vita 1000 and even your 2000 models with just a few items. In this video, we'll be going over the mod itself, explaining how everything will work. We'll take a look at the prerequisites and everything you'll need to build it. Then I'll build it for you and finish it off by asking ourselves the question, is it really worth it?
Now let's explain today's build. So, the VitaDock Plus is a Linux distribution for Raspberry Pi that basically allows you to connect your PlayStation Vita to your Raspberry Pi, and then connect your Raspberry Pi to your TV over HDMI, so that you can have video output, very similar to the Nintendo Switch. If you've been in the PlayStation Vita community for a while, you've probably seen these things floating around. However, if you're new to the PlayStation Vita community, then it is very likely something that you've never seen before. So I'm really excited to show some of you newbies this. Now it does require a little bit of work before we can use it, but I'll be showing you everything you'll need to get started. So now, let's take a look at the prerequisites.
If you're going to be following along with this build, we're going to need to make sure you have the proper tools and equipment. So to start off, you're going to need a Raspberry Pi 02W, a case for it as well, more on that later, a PlayStation Vita 1000 cradle, a PlayStation Vita 2000 dock, or a micro USB dock, a laptop or desktop computer, a wired mouse, and possibly a keyboard. You'll need a micro SD card. Just make sure that it's at least 8 GB or larger. An SD card reader. If you're using a PlayStation Vita 1000, you'll need the proprietary charging cable that comes with it, a micro USB cable, a mini HDMI to HDMI adapter, this micro USB to USB OTG host adapter cable, Velcro straps to keep things nice and tidy, and a PS4 controller. I mean, how are you going to play comfortably without one? Now that we know what we need, we'll move over to the computer. So grab your micro SD card and your SD card reader and insert your micro SD card into it. Then plug your SD card reader into your computer. Setting up your micro SD card for VitaDock Plus is super easy, as you only need 2 files. You can find these files on Google, but I'll leave links in the description to make it even easier. The first file you'll need is the VitaDock image. Googling or clicking the link will lead you to this GitHub page. From here, you can view all the contents of the VitaDock Plus if you're interested in learning a bit more about it. From here, we'll click on Releases. Currently, VitaDock Plus is on version 2.5. However, updates can still happen, so if you see a newer version in the future, click on that version instead. From here, you'll scroll down till you see Mirror 1. Click on that link and it'll take you to a download page. Then click Download and give it a few minutes to download. Once done, you can either drag it onto your desktop or view the file in your Downloads folder. The last file we'll need is the Raspberry Pi Imager software. This is how we'll write the VitaDock image to your micro SD card. Scroll down the page and click on the Download for Windows button. Once the file has downloaded, you can either drag it onto your desktop or view it in your Downloads folder. Next, run the Raspberry Pi Imager software. Once it loads, you'll see this screen and 3 buttons. Click on the first one that says Choose Device. From here, choose the Raspberry Pi that you'll be using. For more information about which Raspberry Pis are compatible, scroll down the VitaDock Plus GitHub page till you see tested models. In my case, I'm using the Raspberry Pi 02W, so I'll click on that one. Next, click on Choose OS and scroll down till you see Use Custom. Click on that and a file explorer should show up. From here, locate your VitaDock image file. Once you find it, click on it, then click Open. Again, if you haven't already, make sure your SD card is plugged into your computer or these next steps won't work. Lastly, click on Choose Storage. You should see your microSD card, but always double check so you don't reformat something you didn't want to. Once you're sure, click on your SD card. Finally, you can hit Next. It will ask you if you want to apply custom settings, but just hit No. It will give you one last warning about your SD card being reformatted. We definitely want this to happen, so click Yes. It will then begin formatting your SD card. Now, this won't happen to all of you, but I've decided to include it regardless. It is possible that you could get a Windows Insert Disk error. I decided to ignore this as it didn't affect anything when it came to imaging the SD card. So click back to the imaging software and just give it some time to format your SD card. After a few minutes, it'll likely finish up. If you happen to get the same Windows error as me, this is perfectly fine. My guess is that these errors are from turning your SD card into a bootable drive. Since Windows can no longer read the SD card, it thinks something wrong has happened. This likely won't happen to everybody, but if it does happen to you, it is nice that you can actually see how to get through it. So if you have the same error showing up, just click back to the imaging software and press Continue. From here, you can close the image software. You can then start closing out of all of the errors and safely eject your SD card. Since this was probably the most difficult part of this build, the rest will be quite easy sailings. Now, let's move on to setting up the Raspberry Pi.
So here we have our Raspberry Pi. Let's take a look at the back. We have the mini HDMI and our two micro USB ports. One is for USB devices and the other is for power. And as you can see right here, I have the SD card, so I'll pop that in. Next, we'll insert the mini HDMI, then this micro USB to USB OTG cable. This is for connecting the mouse. And the final thing we need is our power cable. This is actually how you turn it on. There's no power button on this, so inserting the power cord is how you'll turn it on. So here I go, I'm going to connect it and you should see a little green light. And now you'll see it flashing. It's going to be doing this for quite a little while. This basically means that it's reading the SD card. So just give it a few minutes to let it set itself up. So we'll fast forward a little bit. And now it's finished and rebooted. And from here, you'll get a welcome message. You can read all this if you want, but I'm not going to read it. So take your time and look over everything that's here. Now let's X out of this, and we'll move the mouse over to the PlayStation button and look at all of our options. So from here you can see it does support the Sharpscale plugin on the PlayStation Vita if you'd like. It's also plug-in controlled as well. There's standard definition at 60 FPS and high definition at 30 FPS. So those are your two resolutions that you can pick from. I guess most people will probably pick SD at 60, but I kind of like HD at 30. And over here, we have even more options. For example, our aux connections. Depending on the Raspberry Pi you decide to use, you might want to use aux input rather than a Bluetooth dongle. Since my Raspberry Pi 02W supports Bluetooth, I'm going to use the internal Bluetooth. Now let's go back to our PlayStation Vitas and take a look at this side by side. So you want to open Auto Plugin 2 and make sure that you have the correct plugins installed, otherwise this won't work. Right now you can see all the plugins that I have installed to make this work, but I'll put them up on screen so you know exactly what you need. There are a few extra plugins you can use for a better experience, but I'll be skipping over those to make this easier. And from here you can see once again all of the installed plugins that I have on my PlayStation Vita 1000 and my 2000 model. So now let's start building this thing. So this is the case that I decided to use. It's okay. I only had an issue with the fact that I couldn't get my HDMI cord to plug in all the way. So I needed to cut a hole in the back so that I could get it in all the way. No diddy. As you can see, we already added the Velcro to the back as well. And now we're gonna need to unplug everything so we can put it all back in. So let's take this Raspberry Pi and pop it into place. And we'll put the top on, and now we can reconnect everything. Starting with the HDMI, then the micro USB to USB OTG cable, and lastly, the power. If you unplugged your mouse from your Raspberry Pi, you're going to want to plug it back in for this last step. Click on the Bluetooth logo and set Bluetooth to discoverable. Then we're going to go back to our PlayStation Vita and go to the settings. Then Bluetooth devices, then search for your VitaDock. Since I've already done this, I'll have to delete my original so that I can add this new VitaDock. Now, make sure that the passcodes are the same on both devices, then click OK on both. Finally, go back to your VitaDock and click on Stop Discoverable. Now, we're almost done, but let's check and make sure everything connects. Your Vita screen will turn off and turn on a few times before it connects and outputs to your TV. Looks like everything works, so we're pretty much done, and technically you could stop here. But as you know, we'll be adding the PlayStation Vita 1000 cradle and the Vita 2000 dock so that we can turn this into a Nintendo Switch-like dock. So here is our PlayStation Vita 1000 cradle. If we turn it around the back, you can see that I've already added the Velcro onto it. We also have this audio output, as well as this proprietary charging cable. This line out is great if you're using a different Raspberry Pi that doesn't support Bluetooth, because you can just use a USB aux dongle. And this multi-use port, as it's called, once connected to your proprietary cable, basically becomes a full USB port. So, if you don't want to build the VitaDock, you could just use this port to connect your Vita to your computer and set it up with OBS instead. But for now, we only need a proprietary charging cable. So let's connect that.
We can then use the Velcro to connect these two pieces together.
Then we can set our Vita into its dock and watch as our Vita once again connects to the dock, and now we have video output. It's also very similar for the 2000 model as well. As you can see, we have everything already connected. Just pop in the Vita 2000 into its dock, or a micro USB dock if you'd like. And now we have video out for the 2000 as well. And just so you can see, the PS4 controller does work. And we're pretty much done. That's it, guys. You finally have a Nintendo Switch style dock for your PlayStation Vita.
Now that we finally completed this build, we can take a look at the cost and ask ourselves, is it really worth it? Let's start with the cost. Now, I'm not going to be including the cost of the PS4 controller, or the micro USB cable, the computer, and a few other things that I already own. I'm only going to be including the cost of the items that I purchased specifically for this build. Now, as you can see, we're slowly going through each and every one, and in total, I've spent about $120 on this build, with the majority of the price going towards the Raspberry Pi Zero 2W and the PlayStation Vita cradle. Now, I do believe that the prices that you're seeing on the screen aren't necessarily what I spent, but they're pretty close to what I did. Now, depending on where you live, you may or may not get the same prices. But is it really worth it? $120 is a lot of money, regardless of where you're from or how much you already have. So it's really up to you. If you want to play PlayStation Vita games on your TV with a DualShock 4, and you don't want to buy a PlayStation TV to do it, then this is definitely worth it. I mean, think about it. It's a handheld console, you take it on the go, but now you have a dock at home, and you can connect your DualShock 4 controller to it and continue playing your games on your TV. I mean, guys, this is literally what the Nintendo Switch does. It's incredible to see that the PlayStation Vita was actually capable of this the entire time, 7 years before the Nintendo Switch. However, if you can't see yourself spending $120 on what is basically just a dock for your PlayStation Vita, then this definitely isn't something that you really want to do. And I'd probably suggest looking into connecting your PlayStation Vita to your computer over OBS, as it's far cheaper and less time consuming. But let me know in the comments down below if you would build it and why you would, or if you wouldn't build it and pretty much why you don't want to. And that's all I have to say, guys. I really appreciate everyone that subscribed to my channel over the past week from my Reddit post. If you haven't seen the post, I'll leave a link to it in the description for you. To be honest, I never expected that post to blow up like it did. I hadn't even made this video yet when I saw this post blowing up. I mean, it got 70 upvotes in less than 2 hours. It was at that point that I realized that I really need to work on this thing right now. And now, looking back at it one more time, it's one of the top posts of all time in r/Vita piracy. So I appreciate everyone that has subscribed to my channel from that post, or that just subscribed to see this video.
If you're interested in learning more about the VitaDock, I'm going to leave a link in the description to GameX Data's video, as it was the inspiration for me making this video that you're currently watching. It's a great video that goes over all the features of the VitaDock that I didn't have time to cover in this video. So go check out his video, links in the description.
But stay tuned, because I'm just going to keep doing cool stuff. Now, some of it might not be PlayStation Vita related, but I think you'll still enjoy it. Once again, thank you guys for watching.
And I'll end this video off with some gameplay. So enjoy and have yourselves a damn good one. Peace.